Viewers like you make this program possible. Support your local PBS station.
Featuring an old-style Kentucky ham served with beaten biscuit. We have salted and curried toasted almonds, and we're all sipping this beautiful, kind of a light, fruity Gewürztraminer, which goes very well with all of it. This was brought to us by Brooks Firestone, our neighbor from across the San Marcos Pass, owner vintner of the Firestone Vineyards in the Santa Ynez Valley. And we've got a marvelous visiting chef this time, but none other than the distinguished René Verdun, who was former chef of the Kennedy White House, and now he is chef owner of one of San Francisco's most distinguished restaurants, Le Trianon. He's prepared a beautiful, fishy first course for us. You'll love it. And our main course features, of all things, a loin of pork and a brioche crust. Let me show you how I made it. Everyone's heard of beef Wellington, but this is pork Wellington. Medallions of pork baked in a pastry crust, but it's not the usual pastry crust, because that is often French puff pastry, and that gets kind of soggy many times. This is going to be a brioche crust, which is brown and crusty and delicious. And a brioche dough is a very good thing to know how to make anyway, because you can use it for bread or rolls. And you can also make salmon coulibiac or even beef Wellington in it. It's a yeast dough, so you want to start out with your yeast. And I have in here 1 package of yeast, 1/4 cup of tepid water, and about half a teaspoon of sugar. And I've waited until it begins to prove itself. You see, it's begun to foam up. And you want to be sure that it does, because yeast is alive, and sometimes if you've had it sitting around on the shelf for a long time, it goes dead and it won't do anything. And another thing I need is 4 whole eggs and 1/4 cup of milk. And I'm stirring them all up, because this is an eggy, buttery dough. Make sure that's all mixed up. And flour. I want 3½ cups of flour, and I want to show you how to measure it, because that's very important. You can get very much off on your pastry if you don't do it properly. And all my recipes, I dip a dry measure cup into the flour and then sweep off the excess. And then I'm going to make it in a food processor, because you'll see how quick it is to make the dough in a food processor. I have 3½ cups of flour in there and 1½ teaspoons of salt. And I have 1 stick or 4 ounces of butter cut into small pieces. And I want to break the butter up into the flour. And as soon as that's fairly well broken up, in goes the yeast. You want to make sure that's thoroughly dissolved. And now here's a very important point, is when you add your egg mixture, do it so that you don't put all of it in at once. And I'll keep looking very carefully at your mixture down here, and as soon as it begins to ball up on the blade, stop adding liquid and let it do this for about 30 seconds. That's a preliminary kneading. And just take it out of the machine and let it rest for 2 minutes. The 2-minute rest allows the flour particles to absorb the liquid. Then you get a little final kneading of several seconds, just until you can be rough and tough with it, just until the dough is smooth. Now that's nice and smooth. Now it's ready for its first rise. Put it in a clean, dry bowl and cover it. And let it rise for 2½ to 3 hours. It should almost triple in volume, and it should be at around 75 degrees. There, look at that dough. That's practically filled the bowl, and that's the completion of its first rise. But now, after all that rising, I've got to deflate it and give it a second rise. This is a very important step if you want a really fine quality dough that has the right flavor and texture. You want to deflate it. I've got a tiny flour there. Pat it out hard into 3, fold it into 3, pat it out again, fold it into 3 again, and it's going to have now its second rise. That only take about an hour and a half, and it needs to be just a little bit more than double. But this makes all the difference in having a really fine dough. There it is, doubled in volume. That's just the way I want it. But now, for the crust, I want to chill it to stop the rising action. So I'm going to take that out and put it in another bowl, and I'm going to have to chill it. But it's going to continue rising a little bit until it's thoroughly chilled in the refrigerator. So I'm going to cover that with paper and then put another bowl and a weight in it. The weight and the chill in the fridge will keep the dough from rising. That'll take 2 to 3 hours. Here we are. That dough is nicely chilled now. And I need just about 1/3 of the dough here for the crust. I'll just take that out. And then keep the rest of this chilled in the fridge. Now I'm going to roll that out thin. There, I think that's just about the right size to cover this mammoth pan. This is a kind of an angel loaf pan I found somewhere, but it makes a nice mold. I'll put that on the pan. And then trim it off. Needs to be about 1.5 inches deep. And then prick the top of the dough. That'll help prevent it from rising also, just with a fork all around. Then to keep it down in the oven, I've got another baking sheet on top, and then immediately into a 425 oven. That'll take about 20 minutes to bake. While that bottom crust is baking, I want to give some extra flavor to my pork. This is a boneless pork loin. That's a center cut that comes between the ribs and the hip. And cut it into 1-inch pieces, and then you don't note there's a tail there. Cut off the tail on all of those, and then you can save that. And I have a whole little bunch here to make a sausage meat for the stuffing. And now I want to marinate it, or give it a dry marinade, which will give it a delicious flavor. So I want 1 tablespoon of salt and about a good 1/2 teaspoon of allspice powder and another good 1/2 teaspoon of sage, or you could use thyme, either one which you like. Stir that all up and then sprinkle that over the pork. I have 12 of these loin strips here. You want to be able to marinate this for, or macerate, I guess you'd call it because it's dry, for 2 or 3 hours or overnight. While the pork is marinating in the refrigerator for a couple of hours, I want to make a stuffing that's going to go in between the medallions as they bake in their crust. And I have here 1/2 cup of onions that have been cooked in butter, and I have 1.5 cups of plain, fresh pork meat. If you don't have enough from the tails of those medallions, just add a little fresh ground pork. And this has to be cooked. So I'm going to put a little bit of wine in there. And to flavor it up, there's a little bit of allspice, just a little bit, not too much. You can always flavor it a little later. Bit of sprinkling of salt and some pepper. And that should cook 5 or 6 minutes. Now that's gray, that means it's cooked. So now in goes 2 cups of cooked chopped fresh spinach. That's just been blanched, so it needs a little more cooking and a little extra flavor. I'm going to put in 1/2 cup of chicken stock, cover it, and let it cook for 2 to 3 minutes. Now that should be tender, and you want to taste it very, very, very carefully for seasoning there. It must be just perfect. Now, to turn it into a stuffing, I'm going to put it into the bowl of my heavy-duty mixer. You could do it by hand, but this is really going to work much better. And we have one little problem here, is that we had to cook the pork. So it's got to have some kind of a binding. And I'm going to put in a little bit of fresh white breadcrumbs, about a handful there. I'm going to put in 2 eggs. If it had been raw pork, I wouldn't have had to bind it. There we are. Stuffing's all ready. That can be done ahead of time. And then about an hour and a half to 2 hours before you're going to serve, you assemble the dish. The first step in assembling this dish is to saute the medallions very, very slowly. Dry them off thoroughly, and I have here a combination of butter and oil. And the big trick in cooking pork like this, either chops or medallions, is very slow, low heat. Let them cook for 2 or 3 minutes on one side, and then turn and let them cook very, very slowly on the other side. As you can notice, they're just barely browned there. Well, there, that's lightly browned on each side. And now they need a final cooking, a kind of a little braise. I'm going to put in about 1/3 of a cup of chicken stock there, and a little bit of white wine or vermouth. And then cover them and let them simmer very slowly for around 12 to 15 minutes. You'll be amazed, if you've never done pork this way, how tender and juicy it is. There, the moment of high drama. This is really like a brain operation. There's our hot meat. This is the stuffing, which is still warm. And here's our beautiful brioche crust, looking very handsome. The first step is to spread the warm stuffing into the brioche crust. Now, I've left a little bit of stuffing in there because that's going to go in between the medallions. Next step is in go the pork medallions, which are still warm, and they're really almost cooked. And then a bit of stuffing between each. Paint the outside of this with cold water. That's going to allow the dough to stick. And then here's the brioche dough all rolled out nicely. On it goes. Press that in all around. Then you want a little hole in the center to let out steam while it's baking. And then put on any decorations you want. There we are, all decorated in a peculiarly porcine manner. And it's covered with an egg wash, so it'll brown nicely. And it's going into a 400-degree oven. It only needs about 30 minutes. The pork and the stuffing are already cooked. We just want to cook the brioche dough to a crisp golden brown. There. Look what a nice hot oven is done to my little pig. Isn't that cute? It's really, and it's not difficult to serve, and I'll show you what you do first. Is you take a knife and you cut all around the crust so that you can remove the top crust. There, present it to your guests like this, then lift off one end so they can see what's inside, and then serve each person a medallion and a little bit of that nice crusty top crust. Now that takes care of the main course. For the first course, we have a great fish dish prepared by René Verdon, distinguished former chef of the White House.
Well, Julia, I was thinking and thinking, why, since the salmon is in season, why we don't make a salmon soufflé with a zucchini, green pepper, and dry vermouth? The first step I did first, is to marinate it, some fresh scallop, the scrap of the salmon, the sole, with olive oil, tarragon, and fresh parsley. The salmon, which one we have right here, is a silver salmon, beautiful salmon. So we will skin the salmon first by taking a knife, holding the tail here, you turn over because on any fish you have a bones. with the pliers, which one you get here, you look for the bone. Here you will find them. There it is, you see? And then you cut about, slice about an ounce and a half here, which one you know you will remove here, about the same size. Now, since the salmon is cut, we are going to make the mousse. There is a meat grinder, which one I will put my marinated fish to it. The food processor won't kill all the fibers you have in your fish, and you have a better mixture to it. I put everything inside of a food processor by adding the egg yolks and run for a few seconds to give a little corsi, you know, to your fish. By adding the cream to it, let them run for a few seconds, not over. Remove kindly. You have a good mixture right here, you see? Fold your eggs kindly, exactly like you are making a soufflé at your home. Now your mousse is ready to cover your salmon. Salt and pepper is very important in cooking. You should never add salt and pepper on the table. Here is my mousse. You cover them kindly. Take your blanched zucchini, cut them in half, and reform them like a fish scale, like a fish with a scale on it. Here is my salmon in butter dish, baking dish with shallots. I will put the piece here, and then can be refrigerated until I need it. Since I'm going to cook it now, I will add it some dry vermouth and cover with a baking parchment paper, cook in the oven for 400 degrees for between 5 to 7 minutes. How about a nice sauce now to go with our salmon? Take a little onion, the green peppercorn, the red pepper to it, tomatoes, just wilt it a little bit, not overdone. And then you remove on the side. Here on the other skillet, I have a fish stock who has been done with a scrap, who give you the essence of the fish. I will take some butter, sprinkle the butter on it, and be careful, that sauce doesn't have to boil. You just whip it until you have the right consistency. You see, on that sauce is no flour or no starch, absolutely nothing. When the sauce has been and the butter melted, just add it to your skillet and your melted onion. Now I'm ready for the final assembling. There is my salmon, my sauce. What color, what smell. Something you would like to eat. And here is a butterfly to decorate the platter. Make with a tail, lobster tail. Then the secret weapon, which one you won't know about it. And to finish, a little puff paste, make like a fish who can swim through the dish. What do you think, Julia?
I think it looks good enough to eat, Chef. But one thing I'd like to know, what is this secret weapon of yours?
Chef secret?
I promise.
Swear?
Swear? Yes?
It's the head of the salmon and the scrap of the salmon with the red wine and herbs. That promise?
Promise. I won't tell nobody. Thank you. Thank you, chef. Now, we have to have a marvelous wine to go with this spectacular dish. It just happens I was out at the Firestone Vineyard today, and I was given a lesson in how to cultivate the Chardonnay grape.
Julia, I brought you here this morning to see our Chardonnay grapevines.
Oh, I love Chardonnay. It's really my favorite wine. I just love drinking it.
Drinking it is one thing, but growing it is quite another.
Yeah.
Have a look at this vine here. It's a good
Yeah.
example of how we train our Chardonnay. You'll see how the main vine comes up and is split into two cordons.
You know, now look at, are these little tiny grapes that are just starting in there?
Not yet. Those are buds. They'll turn into blossoms in a couple of
I
weeks.
see. I bet that's pretty. Now, do you have to do much cultivation and that kind of
A
stuff?
lot of cultivation goes on, but there's a tremendous amount of handwork.
Oh.
In fact, you'll notice here, this is exactly why I brought you out here this morning. You'll see this plant here has a lot of, see this sucker right up here on the top?
That's so pretty.
It's,
You take it
it is,
off.
it is pretty, but it must come off.
Even has some grapes on it. Oh,
Because these suckers will take, sap the plant from energy and
I
strength.
see.
Now, if you can do that by hand, but if you
Yeah.
need clippers, I've brought these clippers for you as
well,
well.
I'm here to learn, Alan.
Well, you should
That's
be able to
easy
do
enough
this
to
row
do.
in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, and how much do I have to do
Well, this whole section up here before lunch.
before lunch?
Yes. And then
Be way over to that tree.
that's all right. I think you should be able
Wow.
to handle that pretty well.
Okay.
Now, that's before lunch. After your lunch break,
Yeah.
I want you to come down here below the road and do these plants below us.
Both sides.
Yes, that's about 60 acres.
Alan. Well, I'm thirsty already. How am I going to be after all that?
Well, one of the nice things about working around a winery, Julia, is that there's always something around to quench your thirst.
Well, I
In
hope
fact,
so.
after you do this,
Oh.
Brooks Firestone is waiting for you in the winery to show you some of our wines, but you must finish the task first.
Well, I'd better get going,
better
I
get
guess,
at it.
if I want some
All right.
wine.
Well, thank you very much for your help in the vineyard, Julia. We appreciate it.
Well, it was a little easier when I got used to it. I wouldn't want to make my living that way.
Well, here we are in the barrel room. The wine is aging in here in our oak barrels.
You know, these are beautiful barrels.
Well, they are beautiful, but unfortunately, we have to import them from France and to give it the right flavor.
You know, so why do you have to use French oak anyway?
Well, unfortunately, American oak is too strong, too aggressive.
Sort
The
of
French,
like American bay leaves. They're a little too strong.
I guess.
Yeah. How much do one of these cost anyway?
Well, they cost $275.
Wow.
And it's necessary for us to bring some new oak in for every harvest.
How long does the wine stay in the barrels?
Anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. And that's part of the art. That's part of knowing how much.
Knowing when to take it out.
Just so, yes.
How can you tell? Can you tell by just tasting it?
Well, why don't we taste some and see? Now, you realize that this is just new wine coming up here.
Well,
but
I'd
we'll
love to
see
taste
what,
some.
good. We'll see what it
Okay.
looks like. Here's a barrel I've been meaning to taste.
You know, okay. What's
This
this
is
one?
1982 Pinot Noir.
Oh, look, I love Pinot Noir.
Just
you
harvest-
raise it very well in Saint-Inès, I understand.
Because of the long growing season,
Yeah.
yes. You realize this was just harvested last fall,
Is that all?
but we'll see what's happening here.
I love this little gadget that takes the wine
This
out.
is our wine thief, we call
A
it.
wine
Yeah.
thief. No. Well, the color is kind of light, isn't it? And I like the smell of it. I like the taste. It's not very pronounced.
No, well, you have to realize that we have the elements here, but everything hasn't come together.
Yeah.
The aging will bring these things together to make an elegant, balanced wine.
How long will that take?
Well, in this case, it could take 2 or 3 years. But why don't we go upstairs and try some wine that's ready to drink and finished
Why
and see
not?
the difference?
Why not? Let's go.
All right.
I'm enjoying this, though.
Well, here we are in our tasting room.
Oh, this is nice. I like
Now,
this.
we've just tasted last year's Pinot Noir, and here ready for us is 1978 Pinot Noir.
Aha.
And you'll see the difference.
5 years old now.
Yes, yeah.
It's already, it has a real nose. It has a Burgundian nose, I
Yes.
think, doesn't it?
And the swell, the balance, the elegance, all the flavors have come together after this time.
I think that will go beautifully with our pork Wellington. Brooks.
Splendid. Good.
Good. Now we have a French chef, a very
Yes.
noted one, René Verdon, who used to be at the White House, and he's going to do a great salmon dish.
Well, we have here a Chardonnay, 1981 Chardonnay.
Now, we served this to Queen Elizabeth when she came here to California,
Oh.
so
Well,
perhaps this...
if she knows wine, maybe she'll be
Well,
a good
perhaps
test.
or-
Oh. Nice color. It has a good Chardonnay.
Yes,
smell.
that
Ooh,
unique kind of earthy flavor that the Chardonnay has.
That will do
With the salmon.
for the
Splendid.
salmon
Good,
and the chef.
good.
Oh, that's great. Now, dessert, we're having strawberries with a Zabaione sauce.
It's a very rich, full dessert.
Nice, rich.
Well, we have here a 1981, a special Johannesburg Riesling, a late harvest.
Oh, yes.
Very sweet and very full.
That should be lovely.
I think it'll hold its own. See what you think.
Okay.
You notice the rich color that it has.
That's a beautiful color, isn't it?
It's the late harvest, the
Almost
sweet
like
one.
a honey, isn't it?
Yes, apricots, honey.
Delicious. Well, you know, we're having dinner very shortly. Maybe I better take the wines with me.
Would you? I'll be behind you. I'm looking
All
forward
right,
to that
all right.
dinner.
Oh, these are lovely books. Thank you very much. We'll see you later.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, dinner is served. Please. Come in. Renee's over there. Oh, look at, oh, this is our pork Wellington. Lovely.
My hands be stuck on a desert island for 1 year. This is the wine I've achieved. Beautiful sauce. And lovely.
Strawberry Zabaione. I think the Zabaione sauce is made with some of this wine. So it turned out lovely with it. I must say, this has been a fabulously fun-filled, foodie evening. We've had a wonderful time. I hope you have too. We're very grateful to Brooks Firestone for his really remarkable wines. And René Verdon's fish course was, I think, a delight and a very original presentation. Come back next time for more food and fun. This is Julia Child. Bon appetit.